All right, this is Scott with the Batman Universe podcast. Today we have a unique episode that I'm pretty excited about. Joining me are Dave and John from Coffee and Capes. Coffee and Capes is both a podcast and an online coffee and comic storefront. You can find their store at coffeeandcapes.com. That's an N, not and links will be below, and their podcast on YouTube, Spotify, and anywhere else you can get your pods. Guys, I brought you on here because I think what you're doing is awesome. As both a coffee lover and a comic fan, I think it's a great combination, and I really wanted to talk about it and what you guys are doing over there at Coffee and Capes. So welcome. It's great to have you.
Thanks, Scott.
Thanks, Scott. It's great to be here.
To start off, I wanted to ask, what inspired Coffee and Capes?
Bacon.
That's correct. That is the correct answer.
Bacon is the correct. I'm gonna take bacon for 1,000, Alex. Now, honestly, it really, I and Dave could disagree with me, although it doesn't happen very often. We are usually pretty much on the same wavelength. But we used to get together every week, once a week, prior to the pandemic, and have breakfast together at this place called Pancake Cafe, because they have the world's best bacon.
No joke. The best bacon ever.
Like hands down. If you like bacon, it's totally worth coming to Illinois for bacon. And we just dove into conversation. Like it we're both like longtime comic book fans and geek culture enthusiasts. And that's what we talked about. And then my job took me to, no, I guess prior to that.
Yeah, before you even left, we were arrogant enough to think, gosh, these are some fun conversations we have. We should share them with the world.
Yes. I think somebody put that idea in our head. I feel like it was either Molly or Brian, our friends who might have said should be a podcast.
I think they encouraged us to. I think we were talking about it before anybody else said.
Probably,
but then literally years went by. I think maybe 3 years went by. We kept saying, we should really do this podcast. We should really make this podcast happen.
Yeah, and then the pandemic happened, and I actually my job at the time actually relocated my wife and I out to California, Southern California, and it really kind of it gave us kind of the impetus to say, okay, well, we should do this, if for no other reason, just be able to get together and hang out for an hour online. And I was just looking at our notes, like in 5 days will be our 1 year anniversary of the podcast. Who knew we would even keep going?
I did. Long? I knew. I'm taking that claim. I knew we were going to keep going.
Dave knew. So yeah, that's that. But that's where it came from. It came from bacon, and kind of the pandemic just egged it along into actually being a reality.
That's cool. Yeah, you guys, like your podcasts, I haven't listened to every episode because there is a lot. But I did start following you guys a few months ago, and you guys have a very good banter and energy and everything to your podcast. And you guys cover a wide spectrum of things in nerd sphere. So that's I thought that was really cool. And I think the other component that I found really interesting was before the podcast, I found your coffee shop first online. I can't remember how I stumbled onto it, but I did. And the pairing of coffee and comics, I thought was fascinating. And it kind of blew my mind that I don't think I've seen that done before, in that way. So, just to see that kind of paired together, it made a lot of sense to me, because there are a lot of sites that do, monthly coffee boxes, everything, and people get their comics, monthly as well, their pull list. So to combine that, I thought was kind of a cool and unique idea that, was just fascinating.
And thanks. That's really nice to say. When we did it, so the coffee came out of the idea of man, we should find somebody to sponsor us for coffee on this thing, since we're called Coffee and Capes.
And we were talking about coffee literally every time, because honestly, that's what we do. I mean, that's part of how it came about too.
Yeah.
We say it every week. We really enjoy drinking coffee and talking about geek culture stuff. So that's that's kind of how it started. And then, yeah, go ahead, John.
Yeah. And so then it turned into, we should just see what we can do about starting our own coffee business. And so we headed down that road. It took a while. We found a great roaster who's amazing to work with. We absolutely lucked out, partnering with our roaster. And, we tasted so much coffee, so much coffee that it almost ruined the idea of starting a coffee company, where you're just like, I've had so much, I can't stop moving and shaking in my own skin.
And then 2 hours later, we were over it and ready to keep going.
Yeah, right. Exactly. 2 hours later, we were like, you know what I'd really like to have right now is some coffee. And then, as that kind of went on, and really we wanted it to be reflective of our love for geek culture, because that's how it all started, was this, both Dave and I, part of the aspect of geek culture that we both love is, the inclusivity of geek culture, and how so much of, comics have centered around like fighting the oppression of people and working to show that you can be a mutant and be amazing and loved and cared for. And, so that aspect of comics is fantastic for us. But also like the art, the storylines, the characters, man, I mean, forever. So
it just seemed to make sense to try to incorporate that into what we were doing with the coffee business. Like they're always, I guess they're just kind of always connected for us.
Yeah. And so then it came about like how do we make the coffee feel like it reflects that, right? Our love for geek culture. So that's where the names of the roasts came from. That's where the bags came from. I basically went blind trying to design the bags. And then as time kind of went on, it became this, well, we should just sell comics and coffee together. Like it seemed like the most natural pairing in the world. And so that's evolved into, a subscription platform where people can subscribe to coffee and comics, together. We've got like super boxes that are, different tiers that include variants and first runs and keys and those kinds of things along with coffee. So it just kind of evolved to where we are, and we love to give stuff away. And it seemed like a good platform to be able to do that. We just gave away our first ever golden Funko prize to someone, which is awesome. I love giving stuff away. It's just cool.
Nice. And you guys, something I saw in there was like part of your enterprise. You have like a do good ethos, on your site. And so I noticed, you have 2 on there that I found, for coffee sales, proceeds go to Feeding America, and for comic sales, they go toward the Hero Initiative. Could you guys speak a little more to that?
Sure. Yeah. Happy to. Like we said, it's part of who we are as people, and so it's part of who we wanted to be as a company. And I've done some work with Feeding America over the years, and know that they do really good work. And they're our nation's largest food pantry network, food bank. And so they're reaching places all over the community. We were hoping that our company wouldn't just be selling to like our 7 of our friends here in Illinois, that it would expand out across the country and hopefully, across the world at some point. But we wanted to pair with an organization that was doing good all over. And the statistics are mind-boggling, that there are tens of millions of our neighbors here in America that don't have enough food to eat, including something like 12 to 14 million children that don't have enough to eat. And frankly, that's not acceptable. That's not the world we want to live in. So partnering with Feeding America is a way for us to a small way for us as a company to begin to create, or continue to create, be a part of creating the world as we want to see it.
Yeah. And Hero Initiative, it's mind blowing to us when you hear the stories about the artists and the writers that spent decades working on some of our favorite characters and our favorite comics for these publishers who, it turns out didn't make much and don't have much to fall back on. And, they brought us and continue to bring us like endless amounts of joy and wonder and in their art and in their storytelling. And obviously it's given Dave and I endless hours of conversation, and
Right.
the debates have been on and on and on. If you think, I can think back to when I was a kid debating with my friends over who the strongest hero was, and um so helping to kind of give back to them as well is important. We're adding one. So I'm a veteran. And so we're looking for the right veterans group to start giving back to as well, because that's another group that really struggles. Often you hear about 22 servicemen and women who have served our country a day committing suicide, and that number is way too high. And the reason that number is there, and the reason that happens, is because there's not a lot of resources. Like the VA fails so many people, and then the additional resources past that for them to deal with psychological, emotional, and physical pain sometimes aren't enough. So we're working to find the right veterans organization. Luckily I have a friend who started one called Battle Brothers, that works really hard to find good resources for veterans. So yeah, do good is probably, out of our core values. They're all important, right? But do good really is the heart and soul of I think who we are and what we stand for.
That's really good to hear. I mean, especially with, obviously a lot of the comics that all of us read are superhero based, and this podcast is themed after a very particular one of them.
Sure. Yeah.
But yeah, no, that's awesome to hear, and it's great to hear you guys talk about it. And I won't keep grilling you on the specifics. I'll go over to something a little lighter now. But
All right, that's okay. We'll talk
Well,
about
but
whatever.
before we leave it, let me just say that a piece of why we do good is one of our values is because of the stories.
Mhm.
Right, just what you're saying. Like we've spent decades reading these stories about people doing good in the world, and so it's to me, I think for both of us, it's kind of a way to sort of embody the ethos of the stories that we love so much.
100%.
Yeah.
I would agree with that. Right? It's like we don't have superpowers, but we can still make a difference.
And that's a great way to put it. That's yeah. Living our super heroic dreams, trying to make our community a little bit better if we can.
Yeah.
Right. For some reason, putting a towel around my neck never helped me fly off the couch.
I still try though.
Yeah.
I'm still giving it a shot.
But this is the way we can mimic superpowers.
I should show you the bruises I have from like throwing myself at the wall thinking someday I'll stick. That has not happened yet.
That's why all the tattoos, right? To cover up all the bruises.
It just covers up that endless
Yeah.
bruises. Yeah.
How long have you guys been friends?
We met in 2015.
Is it 2015? Has it been that long?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
Man.
Yep.
7 years. Well, it doesn't seem that long. I mean, it really, and that's like not saying, it's a bad thing. It just really genuinely doesn't seem that long. Like it's a really important friendship in my life.
Yeah, for sure.
Dave was best man at my wedding to my amazing partner and wife, Rachel. Yep. And there's never it's just one of those friendships, at least for me, that I'm always getting something out of. And I always hope that I'm able to give like put into what I'm getting out of.
That's because I give so much, John. I'm just a giver.
You're a giver, buddy. You're a giver.
No, of course, it's a very mutual relationship. It always has been. It's been really.
I'm
good.
a taker, is what Dave's trying to say right now.
Right,
And
right, exactly.
this interview's
No,
over.
we're just kidding. Yeah, John was the owner and head coach at a gym that I started, and we started having conversations there, and just it led to, hey, I don't know, sometime during the workout he's talking about, probably made reference to Star Wars or Star Trek or a comic or something.
It was the name of the workout. There were I named some of the workouts. So I used to own a CrossFit gym, and I owned and operated, and Dave, like he said, came in and worked out there, and I had a penchant for naming workouts after like comic book characters and movie characters and situations, and that's what started the conversation. Was like, yeah,
that's
started
awesome.
to notice that we started having a conversation, and then we started getting breakfast, and the rest, as they say, is history.
It's like
that's right.
It's like a secret handshake sometimes you drop those references.
Oh, for sure.
100. Oh yeah, absolutely, right.
Yeah, it's
a little wink and a nod.
One time,
see who's going to respond.
One time I was at the Art Institute of Chicago, and I was wearing I didn't realize it, but I was just wearing like one of my t-shirts. I had a Sinestro Corps shirt, yes. And I'm walking around one of the exhibits, and there's like one of the guards there, he walks up and he's like, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. And I'm like, what? He's like, I'm gonna have to ask you to leave. And like, I was still like taken aback, because I was like, what did I do? I'm just looking at the paintings. He pulls out this little Green Lantern ring, like one of the promotional ones that had in comics like years and years ago.
Oh, that
is awesome.
And we just like ended up chatting, and we were laughing about it. But yeah, it was just, totally like random. Wasn't even thinking about it. But I guess like he's there, working his shift, probably like
so good though. That's so good.
It's probably the one time in like the years and years he's worked there that he's had an opportunity to actually like pull out the ring.
Right, yeah, totally.
I'm sure you made his day. That's so great.
Everybody else he's ever said that to is like legitimately been a problem. Right, this was like the first time the first time he's like, oh, this is gonna be fun. That's cool. That's so cool. I'm a huge Green Lantern fan too, so I would have asked you to leave as well.
But yeah, just like, like I feel like that whole, when you find people that are just like into, especially like comics and like geekdom, it's just like, it's very much like that extra layer of like, I feel like someone, gets it,
Mm-hmm.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I've definitely stopped at a guy out in Southern California actually, and was like, dude, I love your shirt. And it was a button up with like, I don't even remember the character on it, but it was just amazing. And I was going into the movie theater, I think, and he was coming out, and I was like, buddy, I love your shirt. It's so good. He's like, thanks, man.
By the way, that Pancake House restaurant you reference, is that in Naperville?
Oh yeah.
Pancake Cafe. Yes, it is in Naperville.
Cafe. That's okay. Yeah. Wanted to check. Okay. Because I am somewhat local to the area. So
dude, come to Pancake Cafe. We will buy you breakfast.
Absolutely.
Yeah. We'll buy you breakfast. 100%.
John will totally buy you breakfast.
I will have to try their bacon. I feel like that's the prerequisite.
It really is good. It's so good. Yeah. All right.
So let's talk about your roasts for a minute. So, you guys have a lot. I wanted to isolate or start off talking about the Batman related roasts. So you have the Trinity dynamic duo, Harleen's Delight. Am I missing any? I think that's it.
No, I think
those are the ones.
Yeah, I think those are the three. Yeah.
Yeah.
So what, inspirations led to them? I mean, other than like, it's Batman, is there like, stories or things you think about when you like come up with like the pairings and the roast? Or
yeah, I think well, Dave, you want to talk about the Trinity? Like his eyes got big. He's like, I wasn't ready for this question.
Sure. I do. I'm always ready to talk about the Trinity. So actually for me, this one's a little bit has an extra layer. So I'm a pastor in my when I'm not doing the podcast with John and and selling coffee. I'm a pastor at the Woodridge United Methodist Church, and so Trinity has a little bit of an extra layer there for me. But I also love just love the idea those three big characters of Superman, Wonder Woman, and Batman for DC, and it worked really, really well with that particular blend, because it's weird. I've never seen anything like it, where it's a single origin, but the bean is roasted three different ways. So it sounds like it's a blend rather than a single origin, but it's not. It's just it's the same bean roasted kind of light, medium, and dark, and so you put them together and makes a medium roast. And it just, when you got three different blends or three different beans, three different sort of roasts there together in one, like that's just a softball, man. That's just putting it up on the tee. Like, you've got to go Trinity for a name like that one.
And it was, I mean, you think about Trinity in terms of comics, you go in terms of geek culture, one of two things is going to pop up into your head. Either, right, Trinity from Matrix, right, which doesn't really apply here, but for me, like, it immediately just like, it was a no-brainer when you looked at light, medium, and dark, all three in one, that it was the thing that made the most sense, right? Mm-hmm. You got the Boy Scout, the Amazon, and the detective, and those three characters were so vital in shaping the ethos and the history of comic books, right? From 1938, so when we started seeing those characters come to life. And no matter what which side of the fence you fall on, whether it's you like those characters or you don't like those characters, there is absolutely no denying that those characters play such a vital and continued important role in comic books and the lore and how it shapes and becomes what it is, right? And it's really damn good coffee. It really is like one of the most unique coffees that there is. Dynamic Duo is like probably the darkest roast that we have, and it was, again, kind of a no-brainer. It is a blend, so it's a 2-bean blend, and I mean, it fit. You think about 2 beans blended together, the darkest one you can find. It just was like, come on. Again, like, to Dave's use of the softball terminology, it just seemed to kind of lob itself in there. I mean, even the dark roast bag, if you look at the color pattern that exists within, and it's the same color pattern as what you see behind me, that color pattern is pulled directly from Batman, like the same shades and everything else to try and form like the dark roast bag, because the Dark Knight has, I mean, come on, some of the most epic and iconic stories of all time, right? You had, not only did we get Dick Grayson as a Robin, we had Jason Todd. We all know what happened to him, and that was probably one of the most historic.
Wait! Something happened to Jason Todd?
Oh yeah. Oh, sorry, Dave. This is going to be heartbreaking, buddy. I know. But I mean, one of the most epic moments in my comic book, like, memory, was when DC decided, all right, we're going to let fans pick what happens to this guy, and you got to call in and say yay or nay, he lives or he dies. And I called in. I don't know if anybody else called in, but I did. I dialed the little number. I'm not telling you how I voted.
I was going to ask, did you murder Jason Todd?
I refuse to answer that under the ethos of do good. But and so it's just this long history. So that one kind of just made sense. Harlene's Delight is a little different. It's it's the only flavored coffee that we have, except for right now we have Merv pumpkin spice for the fall, but it's the only flavored one that we put on the menu, and it's actually super popular. It sells like crazy. And the idea behind it was just such a crazy blend of flavors that worked so perfectly well together, and just you knew it was going to become like a fan favorite, that just screams out Harley. And I'm a huge Harley Quinn fan. I know Dave really enjoys Harley Quinn and kind of her arc as a character, going from and just being.
I think there's two. Also, let's be honest. You know, neither John nor I are huge flavored coffee people.
Yeah.
Like, it's not our first, go-to move. And so I think before, if you'd ask me about people that drink flavored coffee mainly, I probably would have said they're a little crazy. So there again, you get that connection to the character who's at least a little bit crazy.
Yeah. But
we're so glad for them. We're glad for them.
Yeah.
Just like we're glad for the character. We're glad for those people that really like that. And it is really good, actually. But
it really is. Yeah.
Yeah.
It's yeah. I would have never imagined liking a flavored coffee, but this one too.
Yeah.
It's a big year for Harley too. It's her 30th anniversary, I think, this year.
It is. And they just got picked up for a 4th season of the Harley Quinn show on HBO. That's a phenomenal show. And her evolution as a character is probably one of the best, in my opinion, in comics.
Yeah.
And it's just so great that she started as as part of the animated series and then became so iconic in the comics. And now the movies, essentially the DC, whatever there is of DC universe movies, are more or less centered around her. It's amazing.
Yeah, that's true. And that's, I really, I also do really like, her progression. I wasn't the biggest fan of the most recent James Tynion run on Batman, but I did really like what he did with Harley, and now how she's kind of included in the Bat family, where she's trying to make amends. And it's, there is that like sense of, remorse, and also this willingness to do good. And, now that she's been, free from the Joker for some time, that's just, I really like seeing that, because, we often, for a while, I feel like even when she was away from the Joker, there was that period where we kept retelling that story. And now we're kind of at that point where we can, there's a whole new doorway open and we can go explore wherever we want. She's got her own comic that was monthly, I think, last month, if I remember right.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. So
yeah, a really great redemption arc for her in some level
Mm-hmm.
that's ongoing. She hasn't arrived, I don't think, yet, but it's still ongoing. So just a endlessly fascinating character.
Yeah.
definitely. One of the things I have to ask, just, because you are big coffee guys, what are your favorite ways to enjoy coffee? Like, do you have a particular brew method that you guys swear by? And I ask because I got to the point where I grind my own beans and everything, and I have an AeroPress as well as, the standard, coffee maker. But I have friends that I'm in a coffee club with, and they are like, they're slowly converting me. They are all out, they got all their different processes. When they send shipments, it's, this works best with Chemex or whatever it is they're doing.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Dave?
Well, this is disappointingly boring, but my main go-to is still just the drip coffee maker, because my wife and I both drink basically between the two of us a pot a day, and it's a time thing. Like, I want that thing ready in the morning when we get up. Like, so as uncool as that may, I could hardly be less or more uncool, I guess. I realize that's not a great hipster answer or good, but we have recently purchased the what do you call it? The pour over method. So we're starting to experiment with that.
Yeah.
But black, man, black. There is no stuff in the coffee. Come on now.
Always.
Yeah. See, this is where Dave and I stop getting along. Also, where I'm a huge disappointment to my father and a mystery to my wife. So first things first, I love making coffee a number of different ways. For a convenience factor, we utilize a a coffee maker that downstairs, so we have it first thing in the morning so I don't kill anybody. But my preferred ways, I always, when I go on work trips, I take my own coffee. I grind it before I leave and then bag it up, and I take either an AeroPress or a travel pour over kit, and I make my own coffee in the hotel rooms. I don't drink hotel coffee ever. It's terrible. Terrible. And there's something greatly satisfying about making my own coffee. I love utilizing a French press. I have an R2D2 French press that I've had for years, that my wife got me as the first present she ever got me. And man, that's hands down my favorite way to make my coffee. A Chemex is great. My only problem with a Chemex is, the coffee cools down relatively quick. I like my coffee hot. Like, I want my coffee hot.
And yet you put all that stuff in it that makes
and then
it
I
not
put
as
stuff
hot.
in it. Yeah. So this is where I become like, nobody's ever going to buy coffee from me again because of what I'm about to say. But
I mean, I've already ruined our street cred, so
I know our street cred's toast, right? They're like, those guys aren't coffee people. So I do put creamer in my coffee. It is a thing. I use cinnamon vanilla creamer is like my favorite thing. And then I put in what's called a coffee bomb from a company called Ladybird Provisions. I've got their shirt on right now. They're out of Austin, Texas. They're owned by my friend Nicole and her business partner, Sarah. Absolutely fantastic company. And they make these things called coffee bombs, and it's MCT oil and collagen protein with like chocolate and spice or vanilla or just plain. And you put it in your coffee. It adds like healthy fats and a little bit of flavor to it. And it's so good. And it's really good for like your brain. So that's the like old like coach and fitness guy in me, looking for ways to wake my brain up better. But yeah, I get grief from everybody that I know that drinks their coffee black. They're like, how can you put anything in it? It's like,
It's so good as it is. Although I will say, the Ladybird Provisions coffee bombs are the only thing I've ever added to my coffee and actually enjoyed it. So
yeah.
I will have to try those. Yeah, I'm always trying to, like, a black coffee. I feel like the hard thing too is like, getting into like grinding and doing, different things with my coffee and making it differently and, less easy as time goes on. That's more of a newer thing. But black coffee, I feel like at a young age, I was manipulated by Twin Peaks. So I feel like that's where it came from.
As were we all, my friend.
And confused, manipulated
Right.
and confused
Yeah.
by Twin Peaks. Let's just be honest. It was like, I don't understand what I just watched, but everybody else says it's cool, so it's cool.
Right. I think that's Westworld now, right? I have no idea what it's all about, but everybody says it's
Love
cool,
that
so
show though. So good.
it looks amazing.
I still got to get back into it.
Yeah.
The last season was it was not as good as like the first season, second season.
I feel compelled to say at this moment that we enjoy giving John grief about putting stuff in his coffee, but honestly, like however you enjoy your coffee,
totally.
you do you, man. That's all good. It's
all
good.
I agree with that. Like, I love. Go ahead, Scott. Sorry.
I was gonna say, I feel like the Starbucks report that came out not too long ago pretty much tells us where America's coffee habits are, and it's all flavored cold brew drinks or iced drinks. I saw something where it was like it was a vast majority of what they sell was like those ice drinks. They are the big movers.
It's insane.
Shakers.
It's absolutely insane. I don't know. So every now and then, like running from place to place and needing some coffee, like I'll especially if I can see that my wife is a little stressed out, I'll be like, hey, do you need coffee? And she'll be like, sure. I'll be like, all right, cool. Stop at Starbucks. And she always gets like a tall Americano with 4 shots in it because she is desensitized to caffeine. And then I get like a tall dark roast with a little bit of almond milk and a raw sugar. But yeah, Dave, you heard me right.
Man, it's fine.
But
As long as you're
it's-
not asking me to drink it, it really, honestly, I don't really care what you put in your drink. Just
Yeah.
don't ask me to drink that stuff.
but yeah, like being in a Starbucks, you see what people are leaving with. I don't know how many of them actually leave with coffee. Like just
Two.
like
Two of
coffee.
them.
Two, yeah, two people. They're like, it's Rachel and I. That's
Yeah,
who's leaving
right.
with like coffee.
You're the only
like,
two.
Yeah,
leaving with
everybody
coffee.
else is like, I'd like a venti quad shot mocha frappuccino caramel macchiato Java chip thing. Like, so a milkshake? You want a milkshake? Got it. All right, we'll just make you a milkshake.
Well, part of the thing is everybody else there is 14, so that's what they like.
Yeah, sometimes. Yeah, it is kind of weird. It's kind of weird, and people definitely like sugar in their coffee. Like
Sure.
that is,
And sugar in their everything. Like sugar's tasty.
sugar is addictive.
There's a reason we're all addicted to sugar.
Yeah.
It's really tasty.
There's a reason I can't go to the movies without getting like Skittles or peanut M&Ms.
I mean, I do like sugar with my coffee, but I kind of like it separate. I like the idea of, if it's like the middle of the day, having like my black coffee, but then like some peanut butter M&Ms on the side or something.
That
that's-
sounds like a great combo.
Yeah. This time of year, some banana or some pumpkin bread. Oh,
Ooh, yeah.
Ooh, warm pumpkin bread, little bit of
Dude.
butter on it,
yeah.
like melting in there. Oh man,
Sweet,
Yep.
savory, bitter,
Right?
all
Yeah.
together.
No butter for me, but yeah.
yeah, all the above.
When what's your personal favorite pairing, of book and coffee? Like if you had to read a comic and brew up a cup of coffee, what would you be doing right now?
Well,
I
I feel like the right answer would be dynamic duo, considering the podcast that we're on. And I do really like that. But all right, I'll say this. Honestly, my favorite roast of our line is the Trinity. It just hits it hits every note for me. And I just wrote about this today. Actually, I would go with I'm one of those weird people that I actually enjoyed the Tom King run on Batman. So I will pair the Trinity with some Tom King Batman. How about that?
Sounds good to me. No disclaimers or anything, just straight up the whole thing.
Well, I mean, that's a lot of books.
Yeah.
85 plus all the others. So, I
Yeah.
don't really have that. All right. Well, I just finished the Batman Catwoman maxi series thing. And I'll admit I didn't love it, but I thought it did enough of the right stuff to be good. So how about that? And I really enjoyed the relationship that those two finally committed to, right? We've seen in
Right,
other iterations that, oh yeah, sure, they're attracted to each other, or maybe they even love each other, but it was only Tom King that had the guts or the stupidity, whichever, your mileage may vary, I guess, to have them actually commit to each other and see what that would do. So I enjoyed that part of the story. So I'll take Batman Catwoman 12 with some Trinity. How about that?
Nice.
That's a good combo.
Yeah.
Yeah. Man. So I think for me, out of all of them, like I love the Trinity as well, but I'm also really a big dark roast guy. And for me, honestly, the dynamic duo is like my go-to. It's my favorite kind of bean. It's like dark and oily and makes just a phenomenal cup of coffee and gives me the right amount of like bitter to go with my sweet. As far as comics go, honestly, I'm gonna pair it with like right now I've been really into Department of Truth. Really enjoying Department of Truth. I found it a little bit late, so I'm going through the trades to get caught up in it. But for as lackluster as and I hate to say it, but as lackluster as James Tinian's run on Batman was, right? He seems to do no wrong in everything else. I mean, his writing and Something is Killing the Children, and
That's what I thought you were going to go with. I would have guessed you would have said Something's Killing the Children.
Yeah, my daughter turned me on to Something Is Killing the Children. She's also now she became a comic book nerd without me being in the same house, and we got to go to C2E2 together this year. That was her first big convention, so it was great. We had a great time. Spent a lot of money.
That's what conventions are for.
Yeah, that's what conventions are for. So but yeah, Something Is Killing the Children is phenomenal, like absolutely amazing. But Department of Truth, if you haven't read it, one, it's probably the most intellectually like heavy book I've read in terms of comics.
Yeah.
Right. Just the idea that it tackles and the way that it weaves everything through and brings in real life things that we've had to deal with, like, mass shootings in schools and flat earther and Sasquatch and, just on and on, like the assassination of John F. Kennedy. It really is a fantastic and super interesting like book to me. If we want to go traditional, man, I've been slowly but surely putting together the OG run of Ghost Rider.
Nice.
Yeah, and I love the original Ghost Rider, like from Marvel Spotlight on through the 70s. Like, that's some pretty phenomenal, like amazing writing if you go back and read it. And the artwork is, classic 1970s, like Ghost Rider. It's epic.
I'll have to go back and check out Ghost Rider. And Department of Truth, I do want to start. I know, like, James Tynan's like, I my favorite thing he's done, admittedly, is his Detective Comics run. Like, as much as I was kind of like, middle of the road on his Batman, his Detective Comics run, I loved that. It was probably one of my favorite Batman runs in a long time. But I know, I've read all of the Woods and I really enjoyed that. My wife loves that one too. And, it's something that is Killing the Children I started not too long ago. So I'm trying to make my way through that. But yeah, his stuff outside of Batman is, it's really good, but it's also very deep. And, there's a lot of like, I don't know, I'm trying to think of the word that I want to use, but just it's a very, emotive, and there's a lot of like mining of like human interactions and everything that's just, you don't really see in a lot of comics.
And dealing with trauma, like a lot of it is
Yeah,
how you deal with trauma, and I think for me that's part of what gives, especially Somebody's Killing the Children and House of Slaughter, gives it a lot of its depth, that it's maybe a little more honest about its dealing with trauma than a lot of books in the medium.
I think what surprises me is that how much, when we start, Dave and I were just talking about this, I feel like last week when we were like filling orders, how much stuff he's written.
Oh my gosh.
Like when you start going through and you start looking like what his name is attached to, you're just like, are you kidding me? Like, this guy has to write an entire script a day in order to keep up with what he's doing.
He writes like he's running out of time.
Yeah, right. And but his stuff, it's really phenomenal. Like everybody kind of says, like his Batman run was oddly like not as stellar as all of his other runs, right? Everything else is it's just been like, give that guy everything, give him every character to write. I think there's some characters, I don't know, that he might, because he's pretty dark, he's pretty dark, and
I don't know that he would pair well with Superman.
That's what I was just thinking. I was like, it'd be a kind of an odd run on Superman.
But Shazam might be mortifying a little bit.
Yeah, that one could be bad. Yeah. Shazam! Oh God, what just happened? Did that lightning bolt kill a cat?
So, as far as Batman goes, what are your favorite Batman stories?
I did enjoy the Court of Owls storyline, that was Scott Snyder, right?
Yeah.
And pairing Batman or pitting Batman against Talon. I thought that was pretty cool, and diving into this, I kind of diving into, in some ways, literally, the underground world of Gotham, and how like these strings are being pulled for all this time, and just like the way it played on Bruce's this almost nursery rhyme thing that had been given to him, and he dismissed it, and I don't know. I think that was kind of, that was one that comes to mind. I mean, I mentioned the Tom King stuff, so that too, of course, but and like really exploring what it would mean for Batman to be in a committed, loving relationship that's been so absent from his life. I mean, I think that's part of why that's been so compelling to me.
That's a good one. Recent, and sorry, before I give you my answer, like they've been recently in the Harley Quinn cartoon exploring like the depth of trauma of Bruce losing his parents, and how he's just kind of always shoved it way down, and he attempts to like bring his parents back from the dead with hilarious and not so hilarious results. But it's really interesting how they kind of, to your point, right, it's all triggered by rejection from Catwoman. And so, you know, the lack of like a depth of love in a relationship, those kinds of things. For me, it's classic. You know, I already mentioned it, Death in the Family. That, and in the original like Dark Knight Returns, right? Frank Miller's work on that was like earth-shattering to me, to see an old Bruce Wayne, and to see like how, in order to deal with time and age and everything else and what's happening to the city, you know, one, recruit yet another Robin in, but two, take like the street gangs and turn them into literally like an extension of the Bat family. And there's that epic moment where, you know, he puts on the bat, like the mechanical like motorized bat suit, and takes on Superman, and you know, which they vainly tried to
say, somebody should put that into a film sometime.
Yeah, they vainly tried to recreate that in Batman vs Superman on screen, but you know, it's just like that storyline was so different than any Batman story I had read at the time, as you know, a younger version of me. And when you combine that with Death in the Family, which they weren't that far apart, really, in terms of when they were released, to see the brutality of Joker beat a Robin to death in the comics, and then the ensuing like impact, and even years later when, you know, we got introduced to Jason Todd as the Red Hood, and he comes back and confronts, you know, Bruce, telling him, hey, you should have like protected me better, you should have avenged me, why is this guy still alive, why would you allow that to happen, I was your ward and he killed me. You know, that storyline has had long lasting and very real ripple effects throughout the DC universe. And so those would be the two that I can go back to over and over and over again, and you know, just probably one of the things that really hooked it in my mind. Batman was a character, you know, I was going to follow forever.
I also really like, and this has probably shown up in a variety of mediums, but of versions of the story where Batman has plans for all the Justice League. You know, he's got traps and plans to take care of take down the Justice League should they ever turn. Like, I always think those are fascinating and enjoyable, and you know, it places Batman as essentially the smart, or trying to put him as the smartest guy in the world. I think Lex Luthor probably would argue with that, but you know, like I just that storyline where it takes that kind of classic comic thing where you pit hero against hero, but like, oh, he's got a solution for somehow the one guy without any actual powers can handle himself against all of these superpowered folks.
Yeah,
That's always pretty cool.
To that point, I would have to say my favorite more modern storyline involving Batman is the Injustice storyline.
Yeah.
While the artwork is like hit or miss, you know, in that storyline, the story of it is amazing. I mean, you've got the Boy Scout who has always stood as, you know, the pillar of good, the uncorruptible source of good within the DC universe. And, you know, Bruce, who's always been the brooding detective that everybody was kind of like, he's got some pretty tough tactics there that not everybody's on board with. And when push comes to shove, Superman's the one that caves completely, right? And turns into the despot, and Bruce is, you know, desperately trying to fix everything. And it really goes to show, with the amount of loss that he endures during that storyline, when Dick is killed and, you know, Damian switches sides, and, you know, then Superman breaks his back and Alfred has to rescue him. No matter what trauma is inflicted upon Bruce, his resolve of will to always be good and stick to like kind of the moral high ground, in terms of like, I won't kill, like, we're not killing, no matter what, we're not going to kill Clark, who's killed at that point millions of people, I think is a real testament to the ideal that Batman truly does hold up.
It's a good way to look at it. Yeah, I can't. I'm thinking about that and I'm letting that sink in. But yeah, no, that's a good way to look at it, because, you know, across, like, I mean, all these different incarnations, you really, you know, you have that, like, you know, idea that's in there. You know, and the only time they really tool it around, when if it's like an Elseworlds, you know, Batman or something, that doesn't really count. Like if it's like Flashpoint Batman, or, you know, then they renamed Owlman, you know. But
Right.
you know, even I'm even thinking like that 90s what's it, like 90s, the Vampire trilogy. I think even in there, like, didn't Batman, it's been a while since I read it, but I think he like sacrificed himself at some point or something, because he knew he wouldn't be able to control it anymore. I'd have to reread that. I can't say that for certain, but I remember that being in there where he's like, I'm gonna lose control and totally lose it. So I'm gonna have to get rid of off myself. But yeah, it's a good way.
Scott, I don't know if this counts, but my probably my favorite ongoing Batman related story would be in the Nightwing run right now. Like, I'm really enjoying that, and I feel like it's, to me, part of what is so compelling about that story is just everything you've been saying, John. Everything you just said about Batman, like Dick Grayson embodies that as Nightwing too. Like, he's the, you know, we've got all these potential heirs to the throne, if you will, but it's really it's always Dick. It's Dick that is the embodiment, and maybe even in some ways is better at it than Bruce, I think.
Yeah.
And there's just kind of a cool moment where Dick goes to talk to Superman, and Superman's like, no, we all looked up to you. And Dick's like, what are you talking about? Like, it's pretty great. Sorry, I interrupted you, Scott.
Oh no, you're good. I was just gonna say Tom Taylor's amazing, and it's only a matter of time before he ends up writing Batman, I feel like, on the main title. But, you know, Dick Grayson, like, I actually really loved it when Batman was trapped in time for a little while there. And so Dick Grayson had the mantle as Batman, you know, because, you know, what you're saying, yeah, exactly. I think I like Dick Grayson a little bit more, just because it's like the, you know, I think even Selena relayed it to Dick in the Batman and Catwoman book series that Tom King just wrapped up, where, you know, at some point, I'm brutally paraphrasing here, but she said to, you know, Dick that he was Bruce's greatest achievement, you know, to have all the skills and tools of Batman, but he has this almost like undefeatable attitude that like Batman doesn't have, where he can, you know, go out and inspire the best of everybody. So
And he really does, right? That's like probably, Dick Grayson's most underrated superpower is that he has that undefeatable like attitude and ability to inspire the best out of everyone, including Bruce, right? Bruce has made it clear time and time again that like there's something really special about Dick that he sees. And I agree, by the way, when Batman Stuck in Time and Dick takes on the mantle for a while, I thought he was just a phenomenal Batman. It was so good, such a good run,
and way better than Jim Gordon in some sort of mechanical suit.
I can't think of Jim Gordon anymore without thinking of the Jim Gordon in the Harley Quinn cartoon.
Right.
Yeah,
because he's so comical,
Yeah.
like so bad, and just that moping, like he's so good.
I love that they got Christopher Maloney to do that too. I thought that was just awesome.
This is a perfect, absolutely
Good.
perfect. Yeah.
Other than Batman, what's on your personal pull list these days?
Well, we've mentioned a lot of them. I'm enjoying Something's Killing the Children and House of Slaughter. I just started reading Radiant Black. And I think that's pretty interesting. I'm trying to catch up because one of my favorite radio personalities here in the Chicago area, Lawrence Holmes, he wrote an upcoming issue or helped write and helped create that. So I know his issue is number 18. So I'm trying to catch up so we can pick that up and be ready for it. That's really good. Thor. I'm a huge Thor guy. We have entire episodes about this, so I won't like bore you with all of it, but I adore, I think it's ended up being a 7-year run that Jason Aaron had throughout the Thor world, and the way it culminated in the War of Realms is probably my favorite comic of all time. Like that whole thing that he did there, I thought was really great. I'm not so enamored of the current run with Donny Cates, but I'll always love that character.
I would have to say, so I'm a big Moon Knight fan. Have been for a long time. The Lemire run on Moon Knight is probably some of the best comic book writing and art that has ever been done, in my opinion. But the current run of Moon Knight, I'm really enjoying. I'm really enjoying like the introduction of additional kind of fists of Khonshu and with like Hunter's Moon and some of the other characters that have come around. I really enjoy the insanity aspect of the character, on a different level than a lot of others. Like he's genuinely like has multiple personalities and they come out in different times. So I think that character is great. We're big Venom fans around this house. It's my wife's favorite character, hands down. And for me, outside of those, I would have to say, Something is Killing Children, like you said, Department of Truth, of course. And then I'll read Harley Quinn like all day, every day. I think that one's fantastic. But I do have to say I've become pretty enamored with Nice House on the Lake off of DC's Black Label. So that one's really interesting and fascinating. I do enjoy, like, I've really fallen in love with a lot of DC's Black Label stuff. Whether it's the Batman White Knight stuff that they did, the Harley book, the Adam Strange 6-issue, I think it was 6-issue limited, was so good.
The Tom King one, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It was really good. So that's a lot, but I read a little bit every night before I go to bed too.
Yeah. Saga is another one. Like it's on a little bit of a hiatus right now, but I came way late to that party, but I caught up in a huge hurry, and gee, it's almost as if people have been saying for a decade that this is really, really good and you should read it. And it turns out they were right.
Yeah.
I learned the hard way not to bring that one on an airplane when you're traveling.
Oh,
you might flip to the wrong page.
yeah.
Oh yeah. Whoops. Yep. That's a good point. That's a good point. I
But
will
it
say
is-
8.
I was going to say it is a great book, but yeah.
Yeah, you could easily sitting next to somebody be like, I'm sorry. 8 billion genies as well. I think that that's a pretty phenomenal book. And I got to meet Ryan Brown at C2E2, and I asked him kindly if they would extend it past the 8 issues that it's supposed to be run for. And it sounds like, you know, they have a pretty solid end point in mind at the end of the 8th issue, but he did kind of hint that maybe they would continue it on past that because of how well it received its been. And it really is. It's great. It's a great story.
I'm gonna have to check that out because I feel like I just read something on graham crackers, either their newsletter or something about it, and they like it was very positive. I'm like, all right, I need to give this book a chance. But
I too got turned on to it by Graham Cracker. Shout out to Kurt and Mike at Graham Crackers.
And Gary.
And Gary. Yeah, Gary. Gary, if I don't know which Graham Crackers you go to.
These days, the St. Charles one, that's the closest one to me. But I have been to the Naperville one a lot, and yeah, I do know Mike. So yeah, I feel like he's a person you meet him once and you remember.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. He's good people too. And Gary, who works at Graham Cracker Comics, actually officiated my wedding.
Oh wow.
Yep.
Nice.
He even had a Doctor Strange spinny ring. He wore when he did it. It was so good.
Pretty great.
It was great. Yeah.
Other than that, do you guys have anything new in the works for Coffee and Capes you want to plug?
Well, I mean, we're always working on something new, right? We're always looking at how, like, the things that we have, and are we providing our big thing is we want to provide a really good value for what people are paying for. The quality that we do in terms of the coffee, it needs to be really high so that when people try it, they're like, wow, that's really good coffee, and not, oh, I could have got this for $6.99 at my local grocery store. The comic book and coffee offerings, when we put together the super boxes, our goal is that, like, and we put in every coffee and comic super box, we put an inventory in there that shows you how much the comics that are in there are worth, and what the total of the comics are, and then what the total of the box is with the coffee added in, because our goal is to always exceed the value of what somebody spent. So
Those are super boxes, by the way. That's what we call them, super box.
The super box. This is the least creative name I came up with in a long time, I feel like, but we're good. And then as far as coffee, the holidays are coming up, so we're doing a limited edition roast, like pretty much every month or every couple months. We did Asgardian Amber for Thor for the release of Love and Thunder. People really liked that one. It was a good summer coffee too, because people were cold brewing it, and it was really good for cold brew. That one just went away. We've got Merv pumpkin spice because it's fall and people love pumpkin spice coffee.
Everything.
For the winter,
people love pumpkin spice everything.
Yeah, pumpkin spice everything. Like, I swear, if you just put it in like a salt shaker and wrote pumpkin spice on it, people just dump it in their mouth. Probably not. I don't know. That seems excessive. But so for the holidays, we are going to have a couple like more holiday roasts that'll come up, that'll be limited, and we're looking at starting to be at events, so trying to get to conventions, and really anything like farmers markets and bazaars and fairs and you name it, and handing out coffee and giving people the ability to buy coffee in a comic, like, directly there. So getting out into the public a little bit more, and we're always open to ideas. You know, we were approached by our friends over at the Genre Geeks podcast. We do a little advertising with them, and we may be doing a limited edition like Genre Geeks roast that'll come out. So we have the ability to do just an endless number of really cool different roasts, and we've got our staples, but we want to do unique things that we can offer every now and then. And that idea, like as we did it with Thor and we're doing it with Merv, that idea really came from and is going to get to a point of where we're doing specific limited edition roasts that are fundraisers for like very specific like community organizations. So if somebody is, and it doesn't have to be a big organization, right? If somebody's like, hey, my kid's going through something and, we're trying to raise money for a surgery, we'd be willing to do a limited edition roast to help that. We did a t-shirt that was a fundraiser t-shirt. We didn't sell a ton, but enough that we were able to donate some money. And that's part of who we are. So we'll keep doing those things and really with a focus on delivering quality to the customers, and then, also giving them something that they can feel good about consuming, because there's a little bit of heart and soul to it.
Thank you guys. And I also want to say thanks for coming on, and for our listeners, coffeeandcapes.com. I'll have a link below, and check out the Coffee and Capes podcast. You can find it pretty much everywhere.
All the places.
Yeah. And, once again, it was a pleasure to have you both. It was a lot of fun, and again, appreciate, what you guys are doing, because it's cool, it's unique, and I think it's right up a lot of like comic booky and coffee people's alley. So.
Well, thanks, Scott. We appreciate it. Like, thanks for having us on. This was great. This was really
so
cool.
much fun. Yeah. Thanks so much.
This was awesome. We really appreciate you having us on.